Why'd you become a doctor?
I became a doctor. I had always wanted to be a doctor. When I was a kid, I used to tell my parents that I would become a pedestrian before I could say pediatrician.
Okay, I get it.
And I had always wanted to nurture and help. And I have a history of competitive Taekwondo. And in that, I was teaching the two sons of a local midwife. And I just got completely taken away into the world of natural healing. Actually, now she's a quantum healer, which she always was. And it just opened up a completely new perspective on health and how we nurture the body and how we have a relationship with this entire world, the natural world, the universe, right?
Was it natural at first, or did allopathic medicine?
I think it was allopathic medicine at first, but I was just a child. I really didn't have that distinction in my mind.
Yeah.
And
just doctor was healer.
Yeah, exactly. My mentor, Anita Rojas, she's an incredible midwife. She's
mentored by a midwife. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So what is quantum biology?
That's a great question. It's a new emerging field, and it actually birthed with the start of quantum physics, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that we got actual evidence of quantum phenomenon in living systems. And it's really the study of the smallest pieces of life working on our smallest pieces of anatomy. And of course, that would include proteins, enzymes, our DNA, our mitochondria, and of course our fascia, right? And this water that lines it. And it is an incredible perspective that reduces things down smaller than we've ever looked before. But at the same time, once you're at that level, it connects everything in this beautiful web. So we see the interconnection throughout all of it. It's beautiful.
From a quantum perspective, we're basically just saying that we're a part of something else. That's the easiest way to say it. And we're not separate from that we're a part of. And in a micro way, what is in here at the cellular level expands in the universal level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're recognizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have this immense sea of plasma that the sun is releasing, and it's streaming into our atmosphere, and this flow of photons goes from every plant, animal, human being across the globe. We're just part of this flow of energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we, current, we'll get into what we think a human being is, but the current version of that doesn't allow for that idea. The current version says we're separate from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It segments everything out. Yeah. It looks at a chemical mechanical model, right? So if you have health, you have chemical balance. Disease is a chemical imbalance. This is really looking at the flow of energy in the body, the flow of electrons, protons, photons of light, phonons of sound. And we know that seems to be creating this frequency language in the body that is giving birth to that chemical model that we learned in school, that Newtonian physics, right?
The way I see it is that everything that we currently interact with as a human being is a reactionary model to all of the inputs. And I see the inputs specifically astrologically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say from a quantum biological perspective, we're a big antenna. We're a liquid crystal antenna.
We are.
Yeah, from our fascia to our DNA to our cell membranes, and especially this water that lines all those things, really acts as this antenna for these unseen waves of information. And we're finally at a point where not only can our technology start to validate this and record it, but I think societally, I think on a societal level, we are ready for another explanation. We know that the current model doesn't explain it adequately.
It's because the dogs are starting to talk to us. I Am Bunny. Have you seen I Am Bunny?
No.
Okay. The I Am Bunny is very complex conversations with the dog, with the paddles. And but the dog is it. You just have to look at it for 10 minutes, and the dog's not just asking for simple things. It's asking, "Who am I? Why am I dog? Why are you human? What's the difference?" The dog is doing this. So you gotta go see the I Am Bunny.
Okay.
But the idea is that as consciousness raises, is like an ocean. Every part of in that photon, in this plasma light that's happening, it all raises.
Yep.
So theoretically, animals are supposed to speak. We have technology which can allow an animal to speak now. So through thoughts, because we have technology that can convert a thought into an image right now. So it's not very long. We're talking within 12 months, commonly available is your ability to talk with your pet.
Oh.
I mean, but it should have been there in the first place.
Yeah. And it kind of is there, right?
What
not
is?
Our language, but
well, we're not aware of it.
Right.
But pets know when we're leaving the house or leaving the office to come home.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, those invisible morphogenic fields, biofield, the field.
I mean, even as a naturopathic doctor, how do they account for this phenomenon? Like, because first of all, I ask them all the time, I'm like, so when somebody walks in a room and they're angry, you can feel it. So what's the mechanism? Did they breathe harder? Did they emit an odor? Am I supposed to smell something? Like, what is the mechanism that my nervous system became aware of the fact that someone was angry?
Yeah, no, I certainly don't speak for all the naturopathic doctors, and I'm not sure what they'd say. I know what I would say. I think that there are fields of information, and this liquid crystalline capacity of our body acts as a receiver for that information. And I think, we're just talking about dogs. How do they know when we're coming home? I mean, Rupert Sheldrake did incredible research with this, was completely ostracized and not taken seriously. But now we know, when we're looking at research in the last 3 to 5 years, that our cells communicate via electromagnetic frequency, via light. I mean, there is this...
There's more evidence to support that it does than there is to support that it doesn't. It's just not talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's actually more research on the quantum aspects of the body than there is on the Newtonian aspect of the body, but it's just not published.
Incredible.
I mean, it's coming out because independently, because of the voice, the ability for people to communicate through technology has allowed us to supersede narratives to a degree. I mean, you and I both got censored.
Yeah.
I laugh at it because it's like you can put concrete over top of grass, but the grass grows with the concrete.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And at first it was like being covered in concrete, right? And then being censored became this experience of, oh wait, I can grow through concrete. Like, it is time to...
Book deals, speaking engagements, all the other stuff just changed. Yeah. I mean, literally within the 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks from now that we've been censored, we've had 250,000 people pop up on Facebook because they want to hear.
Yeah.
And that, that's part of the whole issue is our voice and what we want to say. Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to the science of it. I mean, everything in the body, from thinking to blinking, happens by the articulation of proteins. Mm-hmm. So proteins make it all happen. Now, it's not, for people that are looking at this, it's not proteins that you eat, it's proteins in the cell.
Right.
There is between like 5 and roughly 20,000 proteins per cell.
Yeah, and they, the proteins that really seem to be guiding this biological action are actually embedded in the cell membrane, in this bilipid membrane. And what I think is fascinating and...
Fascinating?
Exactly.
Okay, just got to correct you.
Is the capacity of this cell-bound water to support that configuration and the action of that protein. We see that it acts as a scaffold and a supporting, and it can pick up.
Scaffolding. Yeah, scaffolding and supporting. That's actually a good place to start.
Yeah.
But there is between 5 to 20,000 proteins per cell. If we just took an average, just for math's sake, because you're a Gemini, you like to do math. At 10,000 proteins per cell with 50 trillion cells, we have 5 quintillion proteins. And from a scientific perspective, if we were to stand back and say, scientifically, what do we know scientifically about the human body? If proteins run everything, and we have 5 quintillion of them, we should understand about 2/3 of them, maybe 80% of them. But the fact is that we've only identified 100,000 proteins out of 5 quintillion, and we only moderately know what 5,000 of them do. So this is part of what I love what we're doing, but it's time for science to stand back and say we don't know anything.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And stop pretending that we know the human body. Because then if we stop pretending, then we can start to explore.
Exactly. We can step out of that box that we were given in primary school of what our body does and what it can't do, right? And we can explore and evolve and envision and create a new biology. Absolutely.
So you've been watching us for a while. This is your first time physically interacting with me. So how would you describe, as a doctor, a quantum biologist, how would you describe my biology?
Your biology is quite fascia rich. I mean, just what we were doing before coming in here and sitting down, it is an incredible example of what the human body can be when it is tended to, with fascia being a priority.
Yeah, and minerals, because minerals are what provide the connectivity in life. The consistency, that's why everybody wants to come and touch me, because I feel like I'm like 6-month-old baby. Now, we did an example, which people can see in different parts of our media they'll find, but were you trying to lift somebody else and then you lift me? What was your experience like trying to lift me with 3 other people?
That was incredible. It was something I hadn't experienced before, right? Being able to, and we were using our fingers like this, right? We weren't like using all of our strength and in a squat position, using physical force like that. And we just lifted you right up. Right?
Super light.
Yeah, super light.
Yeah, so like, how do you resolve that scientifically? Because I have the same mass as the person that we were trying to lift before, and he's dense and you couldn't lift him. And then all of a sudden you can lift me. But physically on a scale, like we're pretty close. So what does science say about that?
I'm not sure science has the answer, which is why we have to say, we don't always have the answer. Could it be that the fascia is more receptive, that you are more receptive to our intentions to lift you? That, us placing our hands over your head and gathering in the collective intention, which we know affects biological action.
Sure.
Is that the reason we were able to do that? I don't know.
Or maybe mass density and gravity are not what we were taught.
I like that answer.
Yeah, and I'm still exploring. I don't know. I just know that I know that four kids who are 10 years old can pick me up with their fingers and from a sitting position and walk me around above their head. And I know that they can do that, but I don't know why. I mean, I pretend I know why. I think one of the things is back to the field. The way I perceive it is we have a ball of energy that's a human existence, and it's highly intelligent. Yep. And as we move through that energy to the core of us, we become denser. And then we get to the skin, and it's more dense than the field around us. Mm-hmm. But as we go through the skin and the fascia down to the bone, it becomes more dense. Mm. And at the center of us, we have the highest level of density. And as we move to the further away from us, we have less density. If you think about it, that's electricity. It's a capacitor. You've got insulator and capacitor. That's what we are.
Oh, absolutely. Semiconductive, even superconductive in
Sure.
some things, right? I mean,
superconductive.
And
for sure.
then when you bring in environmental exposures and elements, right? The sun, and how the sun hits our skin and creates this plasma of free electrons.
So is it dangerous to look at the sun?
I think that there's probably a spectrum, right? I think that just like being out in the sun, if somebody isn't building a relationship with the sun throughout the year, then...
What is building a relationship? Like, I'll give you an perspective. 5 years ago, if I got out in the sun for 45 minutes or to an hour, I'd burn, and it'd be 3 or 4 days tending to my burns.
Yeah.
Today, I can spend all day long in the direct sunlight with no sunscreen and no burns.
That's exactly what the relationship means, right? So if we are going to spend an entire year living indoors and then go to the beach at high noon with our case of beer and expect to have a good relationship with the sun, it's not going to work out. We're going to end up...
First time.
You know.
So what's burning? How about heavy metals?
Oh. Well,
that's what a sunburn is.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense, because what...
By the way, I'm the Nordic white guy that burned even with a little bit too much sun.
Yeah, yeah.
And now
same.
I don't burn at all.
Same. And I think that heavy metal comment you just made is really interesting, because what we're also doing when we cultivate a relationship with the sun, when we're out in the winter, when we're out in the springtime and building those melanin stores.
We're detoxing.
Melanin holds heavy metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I propose that what burns you is actually the aluminum, barium, strontium, the tin, all the metals that aren't supposed to be in our tissue. Mm. That's what burns us. Because we didn't have sunscreen 50 years ago, 75 years ago, 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. Where's all the people that burned 100 years ago? They were out in the sun all the time.
Yeah.
How come, what happened to them? Where's all the skin cancer back then?
Absolutely. I think that that's a really important piece, because it's not only a sunburn that we're talking about, the adverse effects, but it's the benefits, right? That melanin, we're talking about a semiconductor that as that light strikes it, it is fully enveloped in a shell of water, and it creates molecular hydrogen and molecular oxygen. And those act as free electrons, a plasma. Like we're talking about the field around us. We have a field inside of us around each of those melanin molecules, right? And then it's so beautiful, because we know that the research on molecular hydrogen, it acts as a selective antioxidant. I know you like the ionized water, we like our hydrogen water, but we have this capacity inside of us, and it allows for, when that melanin is struck by water, it splits that water into molecular hydrogen and oxygen. It can donate those electrons places where you need it, decrease inflammation, act as the antioxidant, and then it can reform the water to do it again.
So explain that to like a 5-year-old.
Okay, so we have melanin in our skin. We also have it in our brain, our eyes, our ears, our internal organs. But this melanin is sensitive to light.
Right.
And when it's exposed to light, when it's exposed to UV light, like on the surface of our skin,
it opens up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And melanin is actually what also allows for color.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. It allows for the pigment of our skin, the color of our eyes, our hair.
Because technically we're not white, we're just less colored.
Yeah, yeah, we're different shades.
Yeah.
All of us are a different color, but melanin is what dictates that, and it has this beautiful dance with water and light. It can create this plasma of energy.
So if the body had too many heavy metals, like everybody worries about something like mercury, and it's held in there, and if they get into the light, the actual melanin, the heavy metal is held in that cell.
Yeah, it sequesters the heavy metals so that it can't
Draws
go around
it,
and
makes it sticky.
yeah.
And then the melanin, if you get in the light, it goes poof, and starts to let it go.
Well, I don't know if the melanin lets it go. I think that maybe the melanin sequesters the heavy metals, but if you don't have enough melanin, then you don't have enough heavy metal sequesterers.
But what if you have too much heavy metal?
Yeah, then working on that melanin can be an important avenue, right? Yeah.
So it's opening it up. It's like letting.
Yeah.
So the idea of a sunburn was really so I don't burn anymore, but I used to burn. So what's the difference? The only thing I can figure out is I just don't have the heavy metals in my system, in my fascial system.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed clinically in 2016 to 19, testing 10,000 patients, is that everybody had super high elevated barium, strontium, and aluminum in their hair follicles, which means it's in their hair is our connective tissue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in our connective tissue, but it's not in our blood. So everybody's going to look for a blood test, and they don't even realize that they have all these heavy metals in their system.
And, when we're talking about detoxing and getting rid of those heavy metals and how you don't have an issue with heavy metals, I think we have to talk a little bit about the water in the fascial system.
100 years ago, human beings were 80% water. When you and I went to school and when we learned about it, we were 70% water. Today, scientifically and taught in schools, we're 60% water. Now, conversely, as we've been dehydrated, simultaneously as all the illnesses in the planet are coming up.
Yep.
So if you want to talk about water, it's like if we are water and we take away. But people would say, I drink a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if I'm dehydrated, why is it drinking water is not helping?
Because it's not the same thing, right? We're talking about cellular water. We're talking about water inside the cell, outside of the cell. That's a different kind of water than the water we're drinking. That water is created by this interaction between that cell wall or that mitochondria or that fascia, right? The wall of that fascia interacts with that water and it takes on a different organization.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to make it simple though, maybe we could say nutritional water versus utilization water, there'd be a difference.
Yeah.
So H2O is a solvent. How do you feel about people drinking solvents? Should we drink a solvent?
I love to teach people to increase that cellular water, that biological water.
But that's H3O2. So what's the difference between H2O, which everybody thinks is water? So H2O is a solvent, should never be drank by a human being. H3O2 is, call it structured or cellular water. Why is it different?
It's different because it has this lattice structure, right? And we can talk about incredible researchers like Gerald Pollack or Emilio Del Giudice and their work showing that this water takes on a different organization.
Sure.
And as it does, it pushes out particles and solutes, including these things we want to detox from.
Sure.
And as it builds against that fascial wall, that fascial tissue, it is negatively charged. And right outside of it, right, if we're math-minded, H3O2, there's a hydrogen missing. Where'd that hydrogen go?
Right, but that's the H3O2 is in nature, it comes from the water and the sunlight in the streams. Mm-hmm. The swirling.
Yeah.
or inside of a coconut or a watermelon. And then the hydrogen, like I said, that extra molecule. So H2O is a solvent-based, and solvent means it's cleaner. It's like when H2O goes over top of a rock, it wears a hole in that rock over time, and it takes away all the minerals. So if we're drinking H2O, which is like filtered water, which we're forced to drink right now. So if we drink filtered water, we're actually robbing our body of all of the minerals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have patients that are like, I drink 3 liters of water a day. I pee all the time and I'm still dehydrated.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's because we're not paying attention to that cellular water. And that cellular water is actually a battery, right? That extra hydrogen goes right outside that negatively charged
You just
water.
said it, battery, because technically we're a battery.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means that we need salt.
Yeah.
That's how batteries work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Water is not a great conductor if it doesn't have minerals in it. If it doesn't have
as a matter of
electric-
fact, it virtually doesn't conduct if it has no minerals. Like distilled water has virtually no conductive force. Once you add minerals, the minerals is what allows it to conduct. And highly mineralized water conducts more, faster, better.
Yeah.
And then the human being, each cell has a charge, 1.4 volts. Which is interesting because that means that at 50 trillion cells, we have 700 trillion volts of electricity. Which coincidentally is the same as 30 suns when we put it in perspective.
It's incredible.
So why isn't that scientifically true statement, aren't people able to experience that, do you think?
I think a lot of that has to do with what we call plasma, right? We're acquainted with solids, liquid, gas, but we don't talk a lot about plasma. And that water in our fascia is a plasma.
It's the fourth phase of water.
That fourth phase of water, like Jerry Pollack in his book, that is a plasma where you have that negative and positive zone, just like those Kordylewski clouds and Van Allen belts that are above our magnetosphere, able to hold intense pockets of negative and positive charge and have that same kind of intense electrical charge because they're able to coexist by this thin sheath in between them. That's happening in our fascia, right? That negative charge, a little bit of water, that positively charged water. And it was Gerald Pollack in his laboratory, he showed that if you put an electrode in one, an electrode in the positively charged water, that separation of charge between the negatively charged water that's up against the fascia and that positively charged water that's right outside of it, it's enough to light an LED light bulb.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's why we call it...
Have you seen all the kids doing it right now? That they light a light bulb in their hand. Have you seen that? Mm-mm. And kids are doing this all over TikTok. They're actually, what they're doing is they're taking a light bulb and then they touch each other.
Oh.
And then the light bulb goes off.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simple little ways, but this is the explorative nature of what's going on. It's like we're exploring what the human body, I mean, do you feel like you know the human body?
No, I feel like I am just stepping one foot into an incredible cave of wonder. I mean, it's fascinating. That's why I love what I do. Fascinating.
Sorry, I'm visceral response.
Yeah.
So you're just stepping that one foot in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love what I do, is because it inspires a continual sense of awe in the human body and that interconnected web that we belong to. It's spiritual. It reminds me of how incredible this world is, this universe, our body, and how it's all connected.
So why are people so sick right now?
I think because they're not connected. I think there's a lot of disconnect. And we could talk about it on so many levels, a fascial level, the water inside of us, our living environment, our ecosystem, and
what are the simple things? I mean, like you have a lot of patients that come to you that are even potentially doing a lot of stuff right, but you're seeing them still sick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the common thing I've seen with my patients is that there is a lack of safety and a lack of a sense of belonging.
So you're telling me that, and by the way, I agree, that my perception of my world dominates the way that my biology reacts.
I certainly am, yeah.
But that perception can be affected by things in our environment.
Absolutely. And I think one of the
chemicals.
Chemicals, pollutants, herbicides. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But I think that that's the real medicine right now, is walking people back into a relationship with themselves, with the world around them.
So what do you tell them to start with? I mean, you have a lot of people that want to be healthy, but they're just not.
Well, I try to get them to look at a few things: their relationship with the sun, their relationship with water, and their relationship with that field that we were talking about before.
So that means go outside, get structured water, but which, by the way, we're both censored for talking about. Yeah, I always say that if you really want to know the truth, just look at what they don't want you to talk about. And all the crazy stuff that you and I talk about. I mean, I talk about child sex trafficking, I talk about chemtrails, I talk about pharmacology, I talk about everything you can imagine. The one that they triggered us on was structured water.
Yeah, I've been censored twice. The first one was in the winter of 2019 for talking about the sun. and this most recent one talking about water. Yeah,
so I mean, basically, those are the ones that if you look at what's being shut down, what we're not allowed to talk about, that's where the answer is.
Yeah.
So that's back to the relationship. So get outside.
Yeah. Get outside, barefoot if you can.
Yeah. Start getting good water.
Yep.
Start to mineralize your body.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, Coach Carol, who works with us, she was pulling part of a scientific research project, and there was like 1 ounce of spinach today, or from 50 years ago, you'd have to eat 146 ounces of spinach today to have the same nutrient profile as just 50 years ago.
Yep.
So basically, somebody says, I'm eating all the good stuff, and even organic. We need to mineralize on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're a direct reflection of the soil, right? And if it's depleted, we're depleted. Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a science of it, which is cool, which we're talking about. But the practical aspects, what do you want people to know, like practically, like the 5-year-olds? Like, what do you want to tell them about their bodies that they're not getting yet?
I want people to understand that these things we're talking about aren't just a checklist, right? So when I was in school, I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions, Lyme disease, and I came away researching a quantum biological way to get healthy. And I came away with a checklist. Okay, I gotta see my morning sun, I gotta ground, I gotta structure water, I gotta deal with my fascial adhesions and interference fields. But that checklist turned into relationships. So now I can feel safety and a sense of belonging when the sun rises. I can feel a sense of safety when I can come internally and create a feeling of heart coherence, where I'm leading from that energy of the heart rather than my brain.
So basically, if I feel safe in my body and my life, then my body heals.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what you do. That's what you do.
Well, I mean, it's really, really simple for people. They do they do a 15-minute stress reset, and all of a sudden their serotonin goes up and they see more options, and through more options they feel safer.
Absolutely.
It's a human expression. It's like if I'm limited, I feel scared. If I have options, I feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's why the fascial maneuvers, I mean, even for me, it's the scale at which it's growing is just, it's insane. Like right now we're like 30 million people roughly, and about 1.5 million people a month. So I'll talk to you in a month, it'll be like 32 million. And with over 1 million practitioners that are prescribing it daily. And then now there's this drove of scientists. By the way, I need to connect you with Dr. Patel, who's organizing the science behind it. He's the world's leading surgeon. You might have seen me talking to him a little bit. He had stage 4 kidney disease. He came to us and on camera, his kidneys refired again. And he's like, oh my God. And it's like things started to work and he's unwinding. He's the one that created robotic surgery.
Wow.
He's also a professor. So we're organizing smart people like you with other smart people to start explaining, because what we have is an observational phenomenon, which means just because science can't explain it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like people all over the world healing themselves. So the question is why? And I have a belief system, but I say this regularly. I'm completely open to the fact that everything I say is bullshit. Yeah. And at some point in time, I'm probably going to, 5 years going to go, that was all bullshit. But okay, here's a better, the reason why I create the stories of the narratives is so I can explain it. To share it.
Yep.
Because people, they can't take a fact without having a story around it.
Yep. It creates that safety.
Safety.
Right? It allows them to fully embrace that change and not, shove it to the side. And that's that danger cell that so many doctors talk about, that you can't heal if you're in that sense of danger, right?
By the way, under my hand, 1,000 gallbladders grow back. Thousands of thyroids. We have medical evidence of this every day. We have parents removing autoimmune disease by themselves, blastomas, brain cancers. We have thousands. We have thousands of women between 55 and 67 years old right now coming out of menopause. I have a 65-year-old that's going to get pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. We forget that our great-grandparents didn't have, women, great-grandmothers didn't actually have menopause. They didn't stop menstruating, but we're just not taught that.
We certainly aren't.
I ask people, because I specialize in women's health, show me one person writing about period pain 100 years ago. Just show me one. Anywhere, there's no personal journals or notes anywhere that you can produce about monthly cycles being painful. We have this story about how our life is supposed to be. And what I've observed, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist. Well, I mean, we're all scientists, N of one. But what I've observed is that we have this echo chamber, which means that all the science on the human body that we're pointing to has mostly been done the last 50 years. 80 years ago, we were 80% water, and now we're 60% water. So the science is being done on a human body and saying, what is this outside thing? How does it react? How does the body react? But the body is now 60% water when it used to be 70% water. So as the bodies get sicker and sicker, we're doing science on things that get sicker and sicker. Like one of the things I showed you is my breathing. So I breathe 3 breaths per minute. But it's also scientifically true that the average person on the planet breathes 15 to 16 breaths per minute. While simultaneously also true that after 12 breaths per minute, they're hyperventilating. I mean, the paradox of science is, that's why I said it's time for us to stop pretending that science is the answer and dive into experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the tragedies of the scientific revolution, right? Like Hooke and his high-powered microscope showed us a level of life we'd never seen. So we cast away that observational science. And in that, all of that wisdom that was held there. And I think that's kind of the exciting thing about quantum biology, is it is ushering in some validation for those ancient indigenous traditions and that wisdom, the energy flow in the body, right? The meridians and flow of energy through that fascial system, through the premovascular system. It's
So
exciting.
does the body heal itself?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what, at the end of it, the body is self-healing because it's not sick, it's trying to talk to us.
Absolutely.
And we're just not listening.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to see something really cool with a doctor about pain?
Yeah.
Can I put you in pain?
Sure.
And put your leg on it. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to put your body into pain on your leg because it's a sensitive spot for most people.
Okay.
And then I want you to touch it right where I'm intersecting.
Okay.
So when I get to about an 8, you let me know.
That's painful.
Okay, touch it with your hands right there. Both hands. It's dropping. Okay, now what out of 10, what is it?
2.
2. Okay, now take your hands away. Back up to an 8.
Yeah.
Okay, now touch it again.
Yeah, back down.
Okay, now say, body, I feel safe.
Body, I feel safe.
I'm okay with this.
I'm okay with this.
Take your hand away.
Yeah.
It's even less than a 2.
Yeah.
So the thing that we're taught to avoid was pain. And the greatest experience that I have as becoming a practitioner from not being one and being in pain was what I was fearing was actually the body saying, okay, I show this to the biologists and scientists all the time. And I'm like, it's resource allocation. The body's saying, this is something new. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm safe. And then it says, I need your attention. So pain, now you put your attention there, it drops. Take your hand away. Okay, body says, hey, I thought you were like paying attention here. And then and you can keep doing that over and over again until you go, okay, body, I'm safe with this, a command. And then the pain dissipates because then your body, it's like telling your dog that I'm okay with this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that a cool experience?
Absolutely.
And I've been looking for ways to explain because we were taught to avoid pain, but pain is the greatest motivator of the human experience.
Absolutely. I just recently read a story about a physician that was working with soldiers. I can't remember what war it was. And they had experienced devastating wounds, right? Loss of limbs,
Sure.
just really devastating injuries. And he would go around in these army hospitals and ask them, how are you? Rate your pain? And they're like, we're okay. We're okay. We don't want pain meds. And their perspective was, we made it through. We are alive. This pain means I'm alive. Where when he transitioned into civilian hospitals and people with pain would come in and say, it's an 8, I need pain medication, because it wasn't the same context. It wasn't this, I'm alive, this pain is a signal of that I'm still here.
Yeah, pain is relative to perception. And if I feel safe, then pain drops.
Yeah.
And so when people have chronic pain in their body, it's because the body's saying, we're not safe.
Yeah.
And then we do all the right things, if chronic pain doesn't go away, but if we deal with the emotions, and that's where the quantum aspects is. I mean, it's super cool that we're here. Like I've learned the science, and then I stepped away from it because it made no sense to me. And even the quantum science, it explains it, but it doesn't explain my relationship with it.
Yeah.
And so, because all that science has to be there, it's a way of explaining it so that we can work with it. But at the end of it, it's just my relationship. Like, it doesn't care if someone says, you get this all the time, you know, don't care about the science if I'm in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to get out of pain.
Yeah, absolutely. People are always like, oh, you just love quantum physics. And it's like, I love this right now. I mean, next year, if we have something different that explains it better, I'm going to love that.
You're a Gemini. It's like, whoop. Next one. No, but it's just an interesting, the thing is, because I love to play around in the science of it or the exploration, but at the end of it, we have to live with it. What's something about you that you want the world to know that nobody else knows?
Oh, wow. That is a really hard one. I am stumped.
What happened at 7 years old? No, sorry, 5.
At 5 years old.
What changed in your life?
At 5 years old, I think at 5 years old, I went from living in a place of safety to being put in the school system in Mississippi, which had corporal punishment and a completely different...
So safety.
Yeah, there was no safety.
Okay, so what happened at 10? At 10 we moved into a completely new place. How'd you feel about it?
I didn't feel very safe. I had a thick Southern accent and spent my evenings in front of the evening news trying to lose my accent because, it wasn't very safe.
So why do you think I know these particular times?
I don't know.
It's called the quantum biology. I'm in the experience of the field. So for you, something also happened around 10 o'clock, at 10 years old right here. Hit your head.
Yeah, I don't remember that. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Well, and I was also, that's right around when I started Taekwondo.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Yeah.
And you get hit in the head.
Yeah.
I could do something right now that would change that.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah.
What do you feel?
Well, that's better.
Well, what do you feel?
I feel an expanse. I feel a lightness and an expansive feeling.
Less pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reality of all the quantum biology is how I feel about it. And so you had a fascial contusion back here. And I can tell you, your body says it happened at 10. And then that restricts the brain, your right hemisphere in particularly. And so that's where you become even more left brain dominant, even more scientific.
Yeah.
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 And you're a 15 degree, which means that you're actually an artist.
I love that because my husband is an artist and I always say, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. So
I have a feeling that you're about to find your art.
I can't wait.
So for me, my canvas is the human body. Because I can just make it shape and change its structure instantaneously. And I'm like, after working with bodies for so long, I'm like, oh my God, I actually like it now. By the way, the little secret is I hated working on bodies until 2019, when this new fascial work started. And I'm like, oh my God, I love it. Let me do it every day. Before, people would ask me for help, and I'm like, get away from me. I did that at work. Book an appointment. Now it's like, you want the help? Let me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when we know we're on the right path, right?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Well, listen, it's been great getting to know you. We're going to have the opportunity to, what we're doing is we're organizing people who have a voice, and we're bringing them together into a network of people. So we believe that people should be able to explore and find their own truth without restriction.
Amen. Absolutely.
Well, we'll get a lot more time to spend together. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to have this conversation. And where are people, is the best place to find you still on social media?
Yes, hopefully the gates will open again on Instagram. I also have a website, and it's all just Dr. Catherine Clinton. drcatherineclinton.com or Dr. Catherine Clinton on Facebook or Instagram, YouTube.
Facebook's doing okay still?
Yeah.
Okay, just like us.
Yeah.
Okay, so just go find you on Facebook now. Check Instagram later just in case.
Yeah.
Don't mind the warning label.
Right.
Yeah. Too dangerous for average consumer.
Right.
Okay, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.